Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Rosa, and if this is the first time that you're seeing my face, then welcome. It's so nice to have you here. Today's video is going to be me sharing the biggest takeaways that I got from Neville Goddard's second book, Your Faith is Your Fortune. So if you guys have not watched part 1 of the series where I go over the first book, which was At Your Command, then definitely go check that one out before you watch this one. I have a playlist on my channel. I think I called it Neville's Books or something like that. So you can go to my channel, go to playlist, and check out the entire playlist and watch number 1 first, and then watch the rest in the correct order. Now, just like in the first video, I want to give a few disclaimers about this video, which is that number 1, I am not Neville, okay? I am Rosa. I am my own person sharing the biggest takeaways, a summary, and just a brief breakdown of my interpretation of Neville Goddard's teachings. I'll be adding in a few things here and there, and I'm also not going to be including absolutely everything that is in the book. Of course, I can't talk about every single concept, nor do I actually fully probably grasp every single detail of the book, but I'll be sharing, everything that I have grasped and what I have been able to implement in my own life and how I've seen it work for me, etc. Like everything and anything that I talk about ever, always use your own discernment. Neville Goddard is not the god of your reality. I am not the god of your reality. You are, okay? You get to always, with any teachings ever, look within yourself and see if the teachings resonate with you. Use your own discernment, tune in with your own higher self, your own, experiences that you've gathered of this life up until this point, and come to your own conclusions about life and what works for you and what you want to implement and what you want to not take with you, okay? Last note is that I'm going to be occasionally looking down because I put together an entire, basically, booklet of notes. Now, I make these videos for multiple reasons. Number 1 is so that I can actually, come back to them to remind myself of Neville's teaching so I don't have to, go through the whole book again. I have it all in one place, in one video, all my biggest takeaways in one place. Also, for you guys, if you guys are either wanting a refresher on Neville Goddard's teachings, or if you actually, or maybe you've heard different YouTubers talk about Neville's teachings, but you don't actually want to sit down and read the book or listen to the lectures, and you maybe want a more modern day approach to the teachings, then this is your video. You're definitely going to want to stick around. So let's dive right in. So Neville Goddard's book, Your Faith is Your Fortune. So chapter number 1 is called Before Abraham Was. In the Bible, it says, before Abraham was, I am. Now, as we spoke about in the first video, the I am consciousness is your very beingness. It is your very awareness of being that Neville Goddard states is our godliness, the God that lives within us, the God of our reality. So consciousness itself, awareness of being itself, energy itself existed before anything else. And consciousness will continue to exist even when our physical bodies do. Consciousness does not need a form in order to exist. So we're all human beings. We've all got a consciousness. We've all got that I am presence within us, that I am presence being the godliness that lives within us. The pure awareness of our own existence, awareness of being, that is God. God is our own awareness of being. If God is one, if God is everything and God lives within us, then that aspect of us that is aware of pure being, that is the God that lives within us. That is the power that each of us hold to create our own realities. So that's how he begins this book, with that first chapter. And the second chapter is called You Shall Decree. And here he states that at every moment, man is decreeing himself and commanding himself to be and to possess that which he is aware of being. Basically here he's explaining the concept that he talks about a lot. On page 34 he says, you shall become conscious of being or possessing a thing, and you shall express or possess that which you are conscious of being. Then he also goes on to talk a little bit in this chapter about how the Bible is not meant to be taken literally, but rather it is meant to be a psychological drama that relates to each one of our lives today. Now, I've been studying an ancient wisdom called Kabbalah for many years now, honestly, since I was born in a way. My parents have been studying it for about 30 years, so I was raised with that Kabbalah kind of consciousness, and they implemented and taught me a lot of teachings in Kabbalah since I was very young, so I do have that kind of foundation original understanding that the Bible, the Torah, the Old Testament, was not meant to be taken literally, but was rather meant to be symbolic of the things that we go through today. And I mean, time doesn't exist. So really the stories are meant to be codes. They're meant to be symbolic of the energies that exist in this world today. And he goes on to explain much more in detail. I'm not going to go into every single, little story and pull from all the biblical scripture that he sources in the book. I will be touching on some of them, but he does bring up a lot of, proof or connections between different things in the Bible and how they relate to energies and consciousness, etc. Chapter number 3 is called The Principle of Truth. So in this Principle of Truth, he really talks about how our goal in life should be to rise in consciousness to the level of having the thing desired. And then once we get to that level of consciousness where we feel like we have the thing that we desire to possess in this world, once we get up there, when we rise in consciousness to feel like we have it, we want to remain there until we feel like our desire is just our natural way of being. As soon as we feel like what we desire to have is already ours, that's when your manifestation is drawn towards you. So Neville says if you are dissatisfied with your current reality, then you must be born again, as the Bible says in John 3:7. But rebirth doesn't mean literally dying and being birthed again. What rebirth means is dropping the current level of consciousness and rising to the level of consciousness that you desire to express and possess. You cannot serve two masters, and masters being states of consciousness. You cannot be in two different states of consciousness at the same time. So basically what he's saying is you are currently in a paradigm, you have a way that you currently view your life, your consciousness is at a certain level, but if you desire something else, then you need to basically kill that old state, ignore that old state, take your attention away from that old state and into the new state that you desire to be. You cannot both be the current state that you are at currently and also the future state that you want to be. You need to completely become that new state in order to experience the reality that that new state is. So he's basically saying you need to die to the old state, leave the old state behind, and put your focus completely in the life that you want to create. Now, man has a hard time believing that it's possible to attract a new reality just by changing your focus. And the reason that man's logical mind has a hard time with seeing the possibility of changing your state is because he sees life through the consciousness of his present limitations. In page 37, he says, you cannot take any part of the present consciousness into the new state. So if you're trying to create a new state, you can't do that from the current state that you are in. You need to shift states. You need to shift your focus to the state that you want to acquire. Put your attention fully in calling it in, and then you will adopt the consciousness of that state. You don't adopt the consciousness of the state once it manifests. Consciousness precedes manifestation. So you must first believe yourself to be that which you desire to be, and then reality will catch up. Then here he speaks about what is commonly called the God state or the void state, which he doesn't really say the term of it in this book, but basically what this is a method that is used, which basically is a very deep level of meditation that he says you need to get into and reach in order to be able to shift your conscious state to this new reality. We can't just think that we're in this state. He says that we need to enter into this void state, enter into this God state, aka a deep meditational state, to achieve the consciousness of the thing that we desire. And the reason that this deep meditational state works is because he says when you quiet your mind, you quiet your ego, you quiet the being that you are, which is all has to do with the senses. It has to do with your current identity, your concept of self, right? When that all falls away, you are left with just your pure beingness, your pure I am, your pure essence, and your pure godly nature without form. When you enter such a deep level of meditation, you completely drift away from your current identity and you're able to step into a blank space or a void state, and that's why it's called the void state, the God state, etc. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this state as well, and I believe he calls it the quantum field, when you're in this space of no time, you're nowhere, you're nobody, and no thing, in no space, in no time, right? So basically, you are just pure energy, pure existence, pure beingness. That pure beingness that lives within each of us, that is the I am presence. That is our pure consciousness, our pure essence, our pure godly nature. So it is once we tap into this state that we're able to completely let go of the limitations of our former self or our current self that we're trying to get rid of. And once we're in this blank state, we're able to piece together the life that we want to experience, the reality that we want to call in. So he basically says to get into this meditative state until you feel like you're floating. Basically, you're denying all of the senses, and yeah, basically just a deep state of meditation that you want to get into, where your subconscious mind is completely open, is completely permeable, and just open to new suggestions. When you're in this deep level theta brainwave state, your mind is very open, very vulnerable to new suggestions. You're not yet at that level of where you're sleeping, but you're at that level where you're awake, but you're in a deep meditative state where you no longer feel so attached to the body, and your mind is extremely open to new suggestions. It's in this state where we want to input into our mind the new reality that we want to experience. It is in this state that you can give form to new conceptions by claiming and feeling yourself to already be that which you desire to be, to revalue yourself as the giants over the grasshoppers. If you guys remember in the first book, he speaks about how problems in our life appear like giants and we appear as grasshoppers because we believe ourselves to be grasshoppers to the giants of the problems of this world. But it is in this godly state where we can actually do that reprogramming, do that revaluing of ourselves, and we're able to give form to a new conception of ourselves and restate our story, restate our self-concept, rewire our brain to believe us to now have the power. We have the power over our reality, and we are the giants, and the problems are the grasshoppers. The goal is for this new state to be firmly established so that no suggestion or argument from anybody in the external world can shake our belief and conviction in this new state that we're creating. Now, chapter 4 is called Whom Seek Ye. But this chapter basically discusses the concept of misleading guides and misleading teachers in this world. In Luke 17:21, Jesus said, "If anyone should come saying, 'Look here,' or 'Look there,' believe him not. That which they are seeking is not to be found in another, for the kingdom of heaven is within." So Jesus made it very clear that he did not want to be seen at or called the good master, and to not recognize any authority or superior other than God the Father, which Neville Goddard states is, again, our awareness of being. There is only one master, and this master is God, which is the I am that lives within each one of us. Now, my perspective is this. There are multiple truths that exist. So we must always tune in with our higher self, with the God that lives within us. And the greatest teacher that lives within us is our higher self without an ego, right? So we need to be able to discern different people's teachings. This doesn't mean never listen to a teacher and their perspective and their teachings, but we must be able to tune in with that godliness that lives within us, within the consciousness that is living within us, the God of our reality, which is our higher self, which is the I am presence that we are, and discern what we want to take on from other teachings and what we want to not take on because we don't resonate and it doesn't align with our truest, highest self. So here he basically says that you don't want to be a slave or basically idol worshiping to another master that is not your own consciousness. So you don't want to be a slave to the master of the illusionary world, which is the outside world, or a God that lives outside of yourself, because you are always a slave to the master being your own state of consciousness. Your state of consciousness, the consciousness that you live in, is your master and is going to determine your reality. And as your master rises in consciousness and elevates, so does your life. But no man can ascend you. The power to ascend is within yourself. And the way that you ascend is by claiming yourself to be already at the level desired. As a human being, your level that you can ascend to is limitless. There are no limits, there are no bounds by which you can surpass. You can always continue to elevate and grow and grow and grow. There are no limits to your growth and expansion in this life because God is limitless and we have that godliness inside of each of us. Just to go on a little tiny little rant over here, the paradigm of the earth 100 years ago, it would seem absolutely impossible to see the artificial intelligence that we're seeing today, to fathom the idea that you could pick up the phone and call someone that lives on the opposite side of the world and FaceTime them, talk to them in 3 seconds or less. The idea would seem absolutely unimaginable, because the paradigm of the collective consciousness at that time was that was just impossible. Our humans are not capable of doing such a thing. But because there was that one person, that one group of people that were at one point in time viewed as absolutely crazy, to imagine in something that is unseen, imagine in something that science said was impossible, imagine something beyond what our 5 senses can see, taste, smell, touch, whatever. But because someone was able to imagine it, was able to ponder the idea that, hey, this is possible, humans were able to find a way. Why? Because we have that universal intelligence, that God within each of us, that we're able to tap into and manifest whatever is in our mind into reality. We live in an infinitely abundant universe. We're never creating anything that doesn't already exist in the godly nature, in the spiritual realm, in the universe's ability. And as Neville is saying, all that is asked of you in order to bring your manifestation, your desire from thought into physicality, into reality, is that you claim to be your desire by saying that I am that. My consciousness, my awareness of being, the God that lives within me, that is so powerful and able to manifest anything I desire, is that already. Chapter 5 is called Who Am I? Jesus says, I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. So here he's talking about how the I that is referred to is the ego, right? The form that we are. And my Father, which is our awareness of being, our consciousness, our subconscious, our higher self, are one. So I am one with the God that lives within me, but the God that lives within me is greater than I, my limited human experience, expression, ego. You get the point, right? So that's where that sentence comes from. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I. I am God. God lives within me, but the God that lives within me is greater than I am in this limited human form. Because in our bodies, in our vessels, we are limited by our 5 senses. We need to be able to use our consciousness, the Father, the God that lives within us, to be able to expand beyond what we can physically see, taste, touch, sense. So the Bible quoted multiple times, whom do you say that I am? And this is the eternal question that is addressed to the manifestation by the conceiver. Now the true self, the I am, the higher consciousness, is asking you, the present conception of yourself, who do you believe your awareness to be? Because whatever you believe your awareness to be, that is how your world will be reflected back to you and shown to you and manifested to you. The I am that you think you are while you're in this body, in this life, that is what causes your conception of yourself to appear real. He says, stop looking for signs from the universe, from God, something outside of you, because signs do not precede, signs follow you believing yourself to already be that. We need to reverse the term seeing is believing to believing is seeing. So we want to start believing in our desires coming, but not because of the confidence that we get when we see the external world beginning to change and give us evidence, but rather we need to have faith in the law first and foremost, that our consciousness is the one and only reality and that it can create the external world. I love this line. He says, you are not a victim of fate, but a victim of faith. Your own faith in the law, in yourself, in your own consciousness's ability to create your outer experience. Now, your external reality is your consciousness objectified. So whether you say, I am wealthy, I am poor, I am healthy, I am rich, I am sick, I am free, I am confined, no matter how you identify yourself, no matter what your self-concept is, whatever you believe to be true, consciously and subconsciously, your world is going to reflect back to you and is going to objectify the way that you currently view yourself. When you change your internal conception of yourself, that's when your outer reality changes. So he says, don't even try wasting your time changing the outside, changing the external world, because all changes start from within. I love this quote that he says on page 52, which is, why should you ask man for permission to express when you realize that your world in its every detail originated within you and is sustained by you as the only conceptual center? When you realize that you are so damn powerful, you will not give as much power to the external world, to the external circumstances, to what other people say that you can do, or limitations that other people place upon you, because you are so certain, not in the evidence from the external world, but in your internal world and the life that you're creating. Eventually, he says, you will not feel the former limitations because that's part of the old identity, and it's not a part of the new consciousness. You are now moving from one state to another state. He says, a conviction is not a conviction if it can be shaken. When the urge or desire is upon you, meaning when you have a desire to manifest something, believe it to be God's spoken word seeking embodiment through you. I love that line so much because that really, I just made a video on this, on why our desires are holy and why we shouldn't deny our desires, because it is the higher consciousness state within us that is desiring to express through us. Now, then he says, go tell no man, magnify your belief within, and when your belief is so firm, your desire will be embodied. The how, we don't know how. That is not man's concern. Man should not be concerned with how our manifestation will come into fruition. We must simply just believe that it will. Chapter 6 is I am He. In this chapter, he is just reiterating that he is God, which is us. Now, he explains how this concept, this understanding is hard for people that have religious beliefs and religious backgrounds, because we are taught that, maybe in a sense that God is a little bit within us, but we're generally believed that God is someone that is external to us and someone who has a right or wrong moral compass. In the Bible, it says God made man in his image. We were born as the creator of our reality, as the God of our reality. God is one. God is everything. And the God that lives within each of us lives within every single thing. When you understand that, you're able to adapt and take on that unity consciousness. The God in me that sees the God in you, because we are all one. Because we're all connected with this energy force, this pure awareness of being that is the God that lives within us, that is not attached to our bodies, that is not attached to the form. Now, manifestation comes into this because if we are God, if God is us, then we are creators or we are manifestors, and anything is possible to God, so anything is possible to us. He then explains how the world around us is just purely a mirror and a reflection of our internal state. He says, don't try to change people. They are only messengers and mirrors telling you who you are or who you believe yourself to be. In page 56, he says, you will be condemned by the world only as long as you condemn yourself. He then gives a simple formula for creating a new conception of yourself. He says, take the attention away from your present conception of yourself and place it on the ideal version of yourself, and then claim yourself to be your ideal in the present moment. Do not fight the problem, because the problem only exists if you are conscious of the problem. We want to focus our intention fully on the thing that is desired. On page 55, he says, this understanding that you are the thing desired will cause a thrill to course through your entire being. When the conviction is established and you really believe that you are that which you desire to be, you will cry of victory when it is done. Once this is done, once you feel like it is so real that you are this new version of yourself, you are in this new state, you then go back to your body, go back into your 3D, knowing that victory is yours, that it is done. Now, I love this example and analogy that he gives in this chapter, which is that imagine you are going into a movie theater and you arrive in the theater at the end of the movie. So, sucks. You walk into the movie theater and all of a sudden you see the end of the movie and it gives you a spoiler. So you know that at the end of the movie, there's a happy ending. Now, you don't yet know the plot. You don't know how it got to that happy ending, but you know that the happy ending is done. You've seen it, it's done, you feel the thrill, you feel the happiness. Damn, such a happy ending, yay. And then when you actually go to sit down and watch the movie from the beginning, all of these challenges are happening in the movie. All of these obstacles are coming out. You are seeing false evidence in the external world, in the 3D world, that everything is going wrong, and you just don't see how you could possibly get to the happy ending that comes in the end. But nonetheless, you know there's a happy ending, so you're not stressing. You're not stressing when the movie shows you that it looks like the characters are gonna die, when you've seen the end and you know that they're not gonna die, right? You know the ending. So if you know the ending, that you're not going to be stressed out, you're not going to be worrying, you're going to be so strong because you are convicted that you have seen the end of the story. So it's the same thing with our life and our manifestations. When you declare and decide that you want a certain outcome, that you want to manifest this certain ending, then it doesn't matter what your external world, what the 3D world is telling you, showing you illusions of this world. It doesn't matter, because you know for 100% fact, you are convicted that you know the end of the story. You know that you're going to attract the thing that you desired because you've declared it to be so. It is with this conviction, when you feel truly like, I have my desire, that is when your manifestation, your 3D world will start to show you signs and the manifestation coming into fruition. But you must have that conviction first in the unseen, in seeing past the illusion of this 3D world, because it is not the full picture. The way that things move and piece together, that is not of our human limitational view of the understanding of this world to be able to see. That part, that is what we let go of. We're not letting go of the desire, we let go of the needing to know how it's going to come into fruition. We must just know that once we declare something to be, it is coming without a doubt. Chapter 7 is called Thy Will Be Done. Here he basically just reiterates what I kind of just said, which is that man must trust that the consciousness will be expressed and shouldn't try so hard to control the 3D world. We shouldn't see things as, what I want is coming or it will be done, but rather we need to see it as it is already done. Our consciousness does all the work for us. We don't need to consciously do it. Our subconscious, the godliness that lives within us, the God nature that exists in this world does the work. We don't need to physically do all the work to see the response in the 3D world. We just need to work up here in the consciousness and getting ourselves to believe, not that it will be done, but that it is done. As soon as we get ourselves to believe it is done, I am now living in my desired state, I am living in the end, that's when reality catches up. He says that if you're stating, I shall be well, I shall get better, I will feel better, is also to say, I am ill. Because God, the I am, continuously personifies that which is. Chapter 8 is No Other God. On page 62, he says, as long as man entertains a belief in a power apart from himself, so long will he rob himself of the being that he is. I like this too, because I feel like having low self-confidence or not believing in yourself, not believing in your power is one of the worst things, like one of the worst self-concepts to live in, because that is what really manifests and attracts everything else. And that's why I'm so big on empowerment and confidence and building yourself up to believe that you are a powerful being, because you are, because that is our essence, that is our nature. And once you truly understand that essence, you understand that nature, you are able to just live such a happier, better life, because you realize this is all just a game. We're living in a matrix and we have the power over this matrix. The matrix doesn't have a power over us. There is nobody else that is taking something from you. It is your own false beliefs about yourself that is creating the undesirable reality. And once you realize that, that's so much freaking power, because you're able to take responsibility to know that I created all of this. And because of your belief in the external things, you give them so much power, you transfer the power out of yourself into the external thing. You then think life is random. You then think you're a victim to life circumstances. And when you feel like you're a victim to life circumstances, that's what you believe. Guess what you're going to experience, because you believe it. No matter what way you look at it, your beliefs create. If you believe you're a victim, you're going to be a victim. If you believe you're the creator, you're going to countlessly see proof that you are the creator. Chapter 9 is called The Foundation Stone. And here he basically says the foundation of all expression in this world is consciousness. There is no cause for manifestation other than his consciousness of being. A little bit reiterating everything we said, but man thinks that he finds the cause of things happening in this world, whether that be because if you're someone sick, the cause is from germs. If somebody is, the current state of the world is shitty, blame it on politics. Constantly blaming the outside world for the reality that we see. The point that Neville tries to make here is that we need to stop trying to change the world, for the world is not the cause, the world is only a mirror. Man attempting to change the world by force is as fruitless as breaking a mirror in the hope of changing his face. Leave the mirror and change the face. Leave the external world and change internally your perception of the world, the perception of yourself in the world. You must first feel the change and then experience it. He says feeling will embody itself in a way that you don't yet know. He then says the most important question to ask is, how would I feel if I were free? How would I feel if my desire in this moment were realized? When you ask that question, how would I feel? The answer comes. And the more you feel, the more it becomes your nature, like we said. And he said it might take a moment, it might take a year, depending on your degree of conviction, or people today would say your level of resistance to having the thing desired. So that is what determines the amount of time between your manifestation coming into fruition, is the amount of degree of conviction or amount of resistance that you have towards receiving that thing. For some people, if they have a lot of, positive experience with manifestation, they believe in the law, they believe they can manifest, and they have that as a deep core belief that they've built up already, then it might just take a moment to manifest your desire. But if you don't yet completely believe in the law, you don't yet believe completely in manifestation, then it might take a month, maybe even a year. I mean, we don't want to be focused on time. We just want to be focused on getting ourselves to feel, okay? Time, however long of an interval of time that takes for you to get to feeling should be the objective, and we should never give up until we reach that state and until our manifestation begins to come into fruition. Chapter 10 is to him that hath. So here the Bible warns man to be aware of what he hears, because everything that a man accepts as true leaves an impression on his consciousness and must in time be defined as proof or disproof. He says that man registers impressions through hearing. So we must be able to discipline ourselves to only hear the things that we want to hear, despite the external world, despite the rumors or the evidence of the contrary of the thing that we're trying to call in and manifest. Chapter 11 is called Christmas, which he talks about is one of the most controversial statements in the New Testament, which concerns the Virgin Mary conception of the subsequent birth of Jesus, where man had no part. You guys may or may not know the story. I honestly am not super educated on the Bible. I am Jewish, if you guys didn't know. So I did not actually read the Bible myself, but I do know like the general story, Virgin Mary, Jesus. Okay. So scientifically, he says, man may be inclined to disregard the whole Bible as untrue because his reason or his logic does not permit him to believe of a virgin giving birth without the help of a man, right? But Neville says that the Bible must be interpreted psychologically to see its symbology. In the Bible, it says all things are possible to God, which symbolizes the true birth of every manifestation in this world. I am consciousness of being, subconscious mind, is the Virgin Mary desiring to express. Then the consciousness is the virgin womb receiving impressions as self-impregnation, and then without assistance from the external world, embodying these impressions as the expressions of his life. He says that the I am, the consciousness of being, is the Virgin Mary desiring to express. So Virgin Mary symbolizes our I am, our consciousness, the subconscious mind. And then the consciousness is the virgin womb receiving impressions as self-impregnation, and then without assistance from the external world, embodying these impressions as the expressions of life. Chapter 12 is Crucifixion and Resurrection. And again, all symbolic. On page 74, he says, the day that you cease to be conscious of being that which you are now conscious of being, that day your child, which would be Jesus, or expression, manifestation, shall die and return to the bosom of his Father, the faceless, formless awareness. So basically, the day that the man feels like I am that which I desire to be, I am free, I am wealthy, I am strong, I am God, the God that I am is touched or crucified by these qualities or virtues. The result of the crucifixion will be seen in the birth or resurrection of the qualities that are felt, for man must have visible confirmation for all that he is conscious of being. When you are so fixed in your belief that your desire is here and you feel it to be so before the visible proof, then with this faith, you will be as one dead and entombed. You will be still and unmoved in your conviction and confident that you will resurrect the qualities that you have fixed and are feeling within you. So you basically die to the old man and embody the new man. Chapter 13 is the impressions, but he spells it like impressions. And they are basically defined states pressed upon your I am. He says we don't need to put in thoughts or effort to express every impression that is impressed on our subconscious mind. Your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind is registering everything, right? It's taking in impressions and is automatically going to express it. It doesn't need effort to express what is being impressed upon your subconscious mind. So when we do try to consciously impress new impressions on our subconscious mind, we want to impress the qualities that we want to experience as if they already are now, not as if they will be in the future. He says tomorrow's expressions are determined by today's impressions. Chapter 14 is circumcision. We all know on a physical level what circumcision is, but he says that the physical act has nothing to do with the spiritual act. So basically it's an operation which removes the veil that hides the head of creation. Symbolically, this means the removing of the darkness of a man. So our awareness of being is limited, right, by our human perception. Our awareness is conditioned, it's confined on being something, right? The I amness is conditionless. It has no conditions, but while we're in a human form, we have these conditions placed upon us as a man living in the 3D physical world. But to remove that veil, to remove the illusion of separateness, the illusion of conditioned awareness, to remove that veil of who we really are, which is just being, that is what the act of circumcision is. Removing the consciousness of being your race, your religion, your nation, your family, your ego, right? All of the things that you identify with, self-identifying yourself so closely with these divisions and become indifferent. He says that Christ is a term for the salvation consciousness. It is a symbolic term to represent the consciousness of salvation, not a physical being outside of us that will bring us salvation, but rather a state of consciousness that we tap into when we remove the veil of the physical world. Chapter 15 is called Interval of Time. Now he says that man is such a slave to time that if we have a desire for something and that desire does not embody itself immediately, many people will lose faith in their desire coming into fruition and just go right back to the old state, the old way of thinking, the old state of consciousness and former state of being. So he says because of man's limitation, it might be helpful to employ a specific interval of time in making the journey or manifesting something specific. He gives a little play-by-play of how you can do this, how you can define a date that you want to receive your specific manifestation in. And he says, do not selfishly define this interval of time in days and hours because you're anxious to receive the manifestation, but simply remain in the conviction that it is done throughout that interval of time in order to get yourself to be convicted and to believe in this process of manifestation. So he says time is relative and should be eliminated entirely and your desire will be fulfilled. So this is how he says that we can give ourselves an interval of time in order to manifest something, to strengthen our conviction in the process of manifestation. So number one, self-concept, believe in the power of the I am, get into that God state, get into that meditative state where you feel like you are in that pure awareness of being. You have dropped the limitations of humanness. Just to give you guys a little note, I personally do this before bed in the sat state, which is state akin to sleep, which he talks about in another book. But I also just kind of do it throughout my day, you know, not specifically getting myself into this deep meditative state. Of course, it's an option, and I know a lot of people have great success with it, but I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't really sit down and meditate like that. I mean, I sometimes do, but I haven't really recently, like since reading this about Neville's work, I haven't even really tried it. So I can't really speak on my experience in this sense, but, you know, if you have done it, please leave in the comments down below letting me know, you know, your journey with it and your experience with it. But basically, yeah, he says to get into this godly state of I am. And then number two is to decide a day for your desire. What would be a relative and a rational time for your logical mind to believe? And he also says, don't make it short here because you're anxious to receive your desire because you have that neediness energy towards a desire. You want to give a time that you are, you know, 100% certain and you feel is a natural amount of time for you to be able to receive your desire. He also states that confidence in the law shortens the interval. So that's why confidence in the law is number one, because if you're certain in the law and you're accustomed to great manifestations kind of flowing into your life and accomplishments happening, then you're going to give yourself a shorter interval of time than the man who is constantly being defeated by the external world, constantly, has experienced in the past their manifestation not coming into fruition. Maybe they've been beat down, so their level of conviction in their desire coming is a lot shorter than the man who feels very confident in his desires flowing into fruition. All right, then number 4 is you want to visit the end in your mind, and you want to hear, feel, experience, and feel the joy and the thrill of having the thing desired. Then once you return back to today, you want to feel happy, embodied, and go through life with no doubt of its fruition, and not allow the external world to disturb you because you're 100% convicted that your desire is coming, right? So he basically says as you walk through the interval of time between when you set the manifestation to its actual fruition in this life, you don't want to be anxiously awaiting the thing to happen during this interval of time. You want to feel like your desire is already here in this interval of time until it does appear in your life. So you want to say you are already there. I am already that. Not I am going to be there. I am going to have that, but it's my state of being. That's who I am. And what we're doing is we're then building the vessel in a sense to expand our awareness, expand our consciousness to rise to that level. And once we get to that level of fully no longer just saying it to ourselves, but we're actually feeling, embodying like it is our life, this is us, and our subconscious mind is now permeated, that's when it comes into our life. Okay. Chapter 16 is the Triune God. Triune God. In the Bible it says, "And God said, let us make man in our image." Now, why is it in plural? And he says it is plural to represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The 3 aspects or conditions of the unconditioned awareness of being that we call God. So these 3 aspects are the Holy Spirit, or the mother, is the receptive attitude of mind, which receives impressions and is also known as the subconscious mind. Okay, so this is important. He says that the mother is the subconscious mind. The feminine aspect is the subconscious mind that receives impressions by everything, right? Then the father is the impression, the conscious mind, and the masculine that is giving impressions to the subconscious mind. Basically, the masculine impressions impregnates the feminine receiver, right? Impresses the subconscious mind, and then impressions over time becomes expressions, and these impressions over time are the sun and the manifestation that comes into fruition through being expressed after being impressed by the masculine, by the conscious mind, into the subconscious mind. When we are in a meditative state, we are entering the feminine aspect, the receptive attitude, receiving impressions from the conscious mind. In this state, we're able to consciously feed our subconscious mind with whatever we decide to feed it with. So when you're in this meditation, when you're in this receptive attitude, you want to imagine how you would feel. And then once you're out of the meditation, you want to return to your life with the knowing that you are now pregnant with your desire. And it's going to be expressed and manifested. He says that doubt is the only force that is capable of disturbing the impression and lead to a miscarriage. So just to very quickly make that a little bit more practical, is that he's saying that in order to manifest something, our subconscious mind needs to be fully impressed over time. The way that our subconscious mind gets impressed is through the conscious mind. Our conscious mind feeds the subconscious with impressions. We get to say, whether that's through affirmations or our daily thoughts, or when you're going to bed before the state akin to sleep, you're rewiring your brain by stating the reality you want to experience over and over, by feeling it. Feeling is the most powerful way. And all that we do, the affirmations, the whole point of it is to get ourselves to feel like we are already living in that state. Once our subconscious mind fully feels like that is our reality, that's when the child is born, okay? Chapter 17 is called prayer. Now, the prayer that Neville talks about is different than traditional prayer, because traditional prayer is what? Begging to a god to take away your problems, to ask for things that you want to have, right? That is traditionally. But what he says is that prayer is not something that you pray to an external god. Prayer takes place in consciousness. Prayer is assuming the nature of what you want. Basically, everything we're talking about, right? He says, close the door of the senses and entirely shut out the world around you. This is done by taking your attention away from all things other than what you desire. And when ye pray, believe that ye receive and ye shall receive, right? Just kind of recapping. When you're in this prayer, when you're in this meditation, he basically calls prayer meditation, this deep meditation that we're talking about, the void state. When you're in this state, your mind is in the feminine aspect, the subconscious receptive mode. And this part of the mind must lose its identity in order to take on a new one. This is also the Virgin Mary energy, right? The feminine receptive attitude that wants to manifest something, so it must lose a part of its identity in order to create a new identity. And then you create this new identity with the impressions, the conscious mind, the masculine force that we use to impregnate the feminine aspect of us. We then must feel the thrill and then return to the world as a changed being, as a pregnant bride. He then says the world will, in a short while, show signs of your pregnancy and eventually its full manifestation, fruition, the child being born, the manifestation being birthed. Chapter 18 is called the 12 disciples. So basically he says that these 12 disciples represent 12 qualities of mind which can be controlled and disciplined by man, and if they're disciplined, will obey the command of the one who has disciplined them. Okay, I'm going to very, very quickly, because I know this video is going to be so freaking long, but we're very quickly going to go over the 12 disciples and the qualities that the disciplined man, as Neville says, would possess, having these qualities, because they are all symbolic of different qualities that we must possess. Okay, so Simon, number 1, is the quality of hearing, and only hearing what we allow ourselves to hear. Simon then becomes Peter, which is the quality that does not allow the words of others to sway our inner knowing. The second disciple is Andrew, and Andrew represents courage, meaning he goes quietly and alone and adopts the correct consciousness of the desire and faith in the unseen. Then we have two brothers, James and John, and James is the righteous judge and John is the beloved. Now they go together because James, the righteous judge, does not judge appearances, only what is known to be true, and the truth is, in John, the beloved, only seeing the good, love in self and in others. We must stay faithful to this judgment that we see good in the people around us. Then number 5 is Philip, and Philip represents asking to be shown the Father, which is the state of consciousness in which man dwells. So he says the disciplined man's mind persists until ideas, ambitions, and desires become embodied reality. The 6th disciple, Bartholomew, represents the imaginative faculty, and basically being a light in the darkness. So if you think about it, the people who give the most to society are the people who use their imagination the most, right? That is the artists, the scientists, the inventors, and people with big imaginations that do things that are innovative in society. Now, people lack creativity in this world because they lack imagination. And he also touches on the education system in the sense, because he basically says that the education system does not develop the imagination of a man, but rather makes a man have to memorize numbers in a textbook, which are later disproved by later textbook, later science that comes out, later truths, right? So that basically strips away the creativity, the imagination of a man, and strips him of the power that he is to create an impact in this world. He says it is imagination that makes one a leader, while the lack of it makes one a follower. Interesting. So he says the disciplined aspect of this disciple is the capacity to conceive ideas that will lift you beyond the limitations of man. Really interesting, because man is limited by our 5 senses. It is our imagination that allows us to expand beyond what is already currently manifested. Imagination is stepping outside of the 3D reality and into the godly spiritual realm of ideas of imagination that exists out there. So I love that. The 7th disciple is Thomas, who represents the ability to doubt or deny every rumor or suggestion that is not in harmony with what Simon or Peter has commanded to let enter. So basically here we need to ignore the 3D and persist despite the external circumstances telling us that our desire is not possible, and denies anything but the consciousness of what he desires to manifest, and basically says what other people say, what the external world says, cannot affect me. The 8th disciple is Matthew, and Matthew is the knowing that man's desires are the gift of God. containing the power and the plan of self-expression, never questioning the how. Disciple number 9 is James, the son of Alphaeus, I'm not sure how to say that, which is the quality of discernment, the clear and ordered mind that perceives that which is not revealed to the eyes of man. James does not judge appearances and is clairvoyant and is able to discern and interpret that which is seen, which he talks a little bit about later as well. Disciple number 10 is Thaddeus, and he represents praise and walking with gratitude for the unseen. The man that is not grateful is not likely to receive, he says. The 11th disciple is Simon of Canaan. This represents becoming conscious of an abundant life, being incapable of hearing anything other than good news. The 12th disciple is Judas, meaning the man must die to who he was to become what he desires to be, must detach from his old self and tune into the I am, the Savior, and let go of all former masters. So to sum this up, Neville says that the man's duty is to get to raise his consciousness to the level and the qualities of these discipleships. Okay. Chapter 19, Liquid Light. I honestly wish I understood this one a little bit more, but what I understood from this excerpt is that Neville's basically talking about the frequency of our vibration and the different frequencies of vibration materializing as physical things. If you guys understand that one, please leave it in the comment section down below. Let me know what is meant by liquid light. I do want to do more research on it as well, but you know, just being honest with you guys. Okay, so chapter 20 is the breath of life. So basically, man's desires are desires because they're not yet living realities, right? So he says that a desire can be symbolized as a dead child because it's not yet living. But having the desire is a positive indication of the limitless capacities for its fulfillment. So he says that our consciousness is a prophet breathing life into what is conscious of being, and that we, when we close the door of our senses against our problem and fix our attention on our desires, knowing that it's certain to be realized, what we're doing is we are breathing life, breathing the breath of life into our desires. Chapter 21 talks about the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Now, this story is basically where Daniel is locked with a bunch of hungry lions, and what he does is he turns his back against these hungry giants and places his vision towards the light from above, prayed to God, and the lions were powerless to hurt the prophet. Now, Daniel's faith was so strong that it brought him the freedom to not be eaten by the lions. So this is symbolic for what we face today with our problems appearing like these very hungry beasts. Most people would only be concerned with the lions, right? Like looking at the lions, looking at the problem, oh my God, I'm about to die. But really turning our back against our problems and towards the light is what lets the lions or the problems be powerless against you. The lions represent these seemingly challenging problems that we feel like we cannot solve in our lives. It seems to be threatening, it seems to be an insolvable, impossible situation to get through. But every problem naturally has a solution within it. And that solution is to be free of the problem, right? Therefore, he says to turn your back away from the problem and focus your attention on the solution. Feel yourself to be the solution. Feel yourself to be the desire. Continue in this belief and you will express what you are conscious of being, which is free. Once you put your consciousness in this beingness of that which you desire to be, you must be confident that you have done everything that's expected of you and that you don't need to do anything else in the physical world or get caught up with if I'm worthy or unworthy of receiving my desire. The universe doesn't know right or wrong. The universe just responds to your belief about yourself. He then says, if problems continue to come back in our life, that is because the old self is not yet completely dead. We must kill the old self. If it still pops into your mind, which is normal and natural because we have our past habits or past conditionings, right? But through constantly bringing our attention back to the old patterns, back to the old conditionings, what we're doing is we're basically resurrecting them from the dead, which we do not want to do. So he says you must leave these dead bodies alone and let the dead bury the dead, which is said in Matthew 8:22 and Luke 9:60. Chapter 22 is called Fishing. Now, in this chapter, he talks about the story of the disciples who went fishing all night and they caught absolutely no fish. And then Jesus appeared and told them to cast their net on the right side, and then the net almost broke with the number of fish that was caught. Now, he relates this back to our lives today by saying that man fishes through the night of human ignorance, trying to get our desires through effort and through struggle, which ultimately leads us to be fruitless in our search. But when man discovers our awareness to be God, we must obey its voice and let it direct the fishing so we can get the fish, or in our cases, the manifestation we desire. He says in order to catch the larger manifestations in our life, we must enter into a deeper and freer state of consciousness, and only in these depths of deeper consciousness do the big expressions of life live. We cannot catch big fish in shallow waters, right? We must expand our consciousness to deeper places, to a higher state of consciousness in order to receive the bigger things we desire. Kabbalah would say we have to expand our vessel in order to receive our desires. So he says in order for successful fishing, you need to, number one, decide what you want. Number two, turn off the senses of this world and remove your attention from the problem and onto being. And then three, from that place you naturally go where the current of life guides you to go. You don't need to control how. You're going to effortlessly move into a new state of being, into the deep, into a new expanded state. You're going to feel that expansionness, and you're going to rise and expand as if you are literally growing, okay? You are then going to return back to the world of the senses with the thrill and anticipation that your fish is on the hook. All right, we are very close to being done. If you guys are still here watching this video, can you guys leave in the comment section down below the fire emoji and let me know that you've made it this far? I want to know, which one of you guys are still here. You guys are real ones, and I hope you guys are getting value and learning some awesome things from this video. All right, so chapter 23 is called Be Ears That Hear. So after an idea is conceived, man with his false reason will attempt to explain the how, which he says does more damage than good. So basically, like we were talking about earlier, men collectively agree on what is possible and what is impossible for a man to achieve. But when someone does the impossible, right, like the 4-minute mile story, people thought it was literally physically impossible for a human being to run a mile in 4 minutes. But then when it was done, countless people began to break that record of a 4-minute mile. So what happened there? It's not that it was actually impossible. It was that somebody decided, I can break the impossible. The impossible is not impossible to me. It doesn't matter if the whole entire world and science tells me I cannot do something. My consciousness tells me I can, therefore I'm going to do that. So he says once people do the impossible thing, then the people who said it was impossible are going to come back and say, oh, well, this is why. Science explains why. This is why you can do the impossible thing. They're trying to basically figure out the cause of the manifestation and why it happened. But he's saying that as soon as they say, this is the cause, this is the reason, because this scientific explanation, that they are as far from the truth as they were when they said it was impossible. Why? Because as long as man looks for the cause of expression in places other than the expressor, he looks in vain. Logic and reason is going to be the biggest thing that destroys manifestation, because the only reality is our consciousness, our awareness of being. The one and only God is your awareness of being. So even if the whole world says that you cannot do something, if you believe that you can, if you believe that you are, if you mentally get yourself to become aware of being that which you desire to be, you will express it. That is the law, okay? In Luke 10:4 and Kings 4:29, it is said, salute no man. This is a reminder to not recognize that there is a superior above yourself, to put people on a pedestal about yourself and have people's words affect you so deeply. For all are as nothing in the eyes of God, okay? Nothing is above your consciousness of being. All things are possible to God. All things are possible to your consciousness. If you have an unalterable conviction in your desire, that transcends reason and intellect. Chapter 4, he talks a little bit about clairvoyance and basically says that clairvoyance is not in the ability to see beyond human vision, but the ability to understand that which you see, which loved that. Chapter 25, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. My awareness is the Lord. What I am aware of being is the sheep that follow me. So if you become aware of being great, of being loving, of being wealthy, of being healthy, of being all other attributes that you admire to be, That awareness is your Lord. And then the sheep are the attributes. They're going to follow you. You are going to be those things. You're going to adopt those qualities and those attributes. There is an abundance of everything in this life. You're going to get an abundance of whatever it is that you are conscious of being. Even if that's an abundance of lack, an abundance of not having money, an abundance of being in fear. If you are conscious of being that version, you're going to continuously attract it because you get an abundance of what you claim and believe yourself to be. In page 113, he says, "In spite of confusion of the world, I will fear no evil because I have found consciousness to be that which makes the confusion." So we must believe that I will succeed despite any external challenges or oppositions, because I will continue to strengthen my belief in me being in joy and being the God of my reality. Chapter 26 is Gethsemane. Gethsemane. Basically, the Garden of Gethsemane is a state of joy. And he says that the disciplined man loses himself in the wild joy of his manifestations already being here. How would you feel if you had all your desires? You must feel that way now. That is living in a state of joy. That is living in the godly state, is by feeling in joy because you understand who you are. Every single desire that a man has contains within that desire the plan and the ability to be expressed in this world. And that possession happens, once again, through believing you are that already. Your consciousness births the world around you. So he says we must choose a good mother for your child wisely, because our consciousness is the mother. And inherently, our child, our manifestation, the earth, is going to inherit qualities of the parent, of the mother, both the conscious and the subconscious mind. So this is why we must consciously claim what we desire to be expressed in the 3D. We do not want to react to suggestions of fear, lack, or on any undesirable impressions. Because if these impressions come to us, we get to decide, do we resonate? Do we want to take this on and adopt it into our subconscious mind? Or do we want to continue permeating our new story that we're creating and crucify, kill the old self and fixate on creating a new consciousness, walk with conviction until the new consciousness is resurrected or made visible? He then says that the crucifixion or fixation of the new consciousness claim is followed by the Sabbath, which is a time of rest and a period of non-effort, which we're going to get into in the next book, because I know he talks about this more in the next book. He doesn't really touch on it too much here. And then last chapter, A Formula for Victory, chapter 27. So here he basically sums up a formula for victory, and that is to first define the objective and know exactly what you want, right? We're just basically recapping over here. Second is to take away the attention from your obstacles, which separate you from the objective, and place your consciousness on the objective. Number 3, close your eyes and feel that you are already that which you desire to be. Number 4 is to remain in this state until you get a conscious reaction of complete satisfaction in this victory. 5, open your eyes, returning to the former consciousness state, and do this without doubt or without fear. And he wraps up the book by saying, do not be afraid of the enemy, for the outcome has been determined by your godly self. Okay? So that's all for this book. That was the second book of Neville Goddard, called Your Faith is Your Fortune. A longer one than the first one, but we did it. The next book is called Freedom for All. So if you guys finish watching this one and you guys are wanting to go through all of them and do some studying, do some research on the Neville collection, then definitely check out the third video I'm going to have on this series. But yeah, so that is all for me in this video, guys. I hope you got value out of it. If you did, please leave it a like and a comment down below, letting me know what was the most valuable takeaways that you got from this video. Make sure to watch all the rest of the videos in the playlist. And make sure, if you're not already, that you hit that subscribe button, okay? I've got so many great, amazing videos coming up for you guys and that I already have on my channel that you guys can check out, watch back, learn, study the immaterial, and manifest your desires, okay? All right, gonna wrap this up here. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye. Love ya.